And from the war in the Middle East to the war in Europe, Russian President Vladimir Putin wants to create a buffer zone inside Ukraine. The Kremlin says this will protect Russia from Ukrainian attacks. Ukraine says Russia's call for a buffer zone speaks of its intentions to expand the war as Putin's soldiers gain more ground in eastern Ukraine. Meanwhile, Zelensky's troops desperately await vital aid from Western allies. Our next report takes you inside.
Russian troops continue with their onslaught in Ukraine. President Vladimir Putin's forces are now advancing in the east. After the fall of Avdiivka, Russian soldiers have now captured more territory, and Putin now wants to create a buffer zone inside Ukraine. Putin says, and I quote, "A security zone would be difficult to penetrate using foreign-made assets." Basically, the buffer zone would make it difficult for Ukraine to launch attacks into Russia. Ukraine says that a buffer zone only means that Russia is preparing for a larger attack. The call for a buffer zone comes after two significant operations. The first was when anti-Putin forces launched a cross-border attack into Russia earlier this month. And second are the drone strikes that Kyiv carried out in Russia's Belgorod. Russia has announced that it will now evacuate 9,000 children from regions bordering Ukraine. Putin also said that his forces were ready for a much bigger operation this summer. Meanwhile, Zelensky's troops have been left to fend for themselves as aid from Western nations dries up. Pentagon's chief warns that Ukraine's survival is in danger.
So when we invest in Ukraine's security, we invest in our own security. And we strengthen this contact group's shared vision of an open world of rules and rights and responsibilities. Today, Ukraine's survival is in danger, and America's security is at risk. And they don't have a day to waste, and we don't have a day to spare either.
U.S. Defense Secretary Austin Lloyd added that Russia would not stop at just Ukraine.
And ladies and gentlemen, let's not kid ourselves. Putin will not stop at Ukraine. But as President Biden has said, Ukraine can stop Putin if we stand with Ukraine and provide the weapons that it needs to defend itself. Ukraine's survival is on the line, and all of our security is on the line. So we will continue to stand together to resist Putin's campaign of conquest, and we will continue to keep the faith with the people of Ukraine.
Lloyd Austin's comments come at a time when American lawmakers continue to block military aid for Ukraine. Republican House of Representatives Speaker Mike Johnson has refused to vote on a bill that would provide Kyiv $60 billion worth of aid. The Biden administration says it is working with lawmakers to break the deadlock. Meanwhile, Ukraine says the situation on the front line continues to deteriorate.
We have difficult situation on the front line because of lack of artillery ammunition, and we hope that this Czech initiative, which Luxembourg joined, will help us, and beginning since April we will have enough ammunition, artillery ammunition, to deter our front line. So now the front line is stabilized.
Russia continues to hold a massive advantage over Ukraine. Officials in Kyiv say Russia has carried out over 3,000 ground and air attacks since the year began. With no peace talks in sight, and with Russia holding on to large parts of Ukrainian territory comfortably, it looks like Putin is actively working towards a buffer zone.